You know, sometimes I think, why do I do this to myself? Why do I follow this team knowing that in the end, I'm just going to be left frustrated, disappointed, and angry? Like, even when, they get my hopes up, they bring me back in, even when you think, all right, things are finally trending in the right direction. They're finally building around a young core. They're finally playing a style of offense that fits the modern day NBA. And hey, they're a fun team. They're a fun and exciting team to watch. To see it go downhill, to see this team completely fall off a cliff in the manner that they have ever since that bad loss against the depleted Detroit Pistons, sans the game against the Denver Nuggets, to see them look like a completely different team, not even just in the way that they play, but the vibe, the energy, the body language, the physicality, to completely see that shift is unfathomable to me. Like, I've never seen anything like this before, not even just with the Bulls, but in the league in general. I've never seen such a drastic shift in play from a team in such a short period of time without some sort of major injury taking place. Like, yes, you can go back to the 21-22 season Bulls where they had, they were the number 1 seed in the East heading into the All-Star break, and then they fell off the face of the earth to finish 6th in the East by the end of the season, but that was in large part due to a very big injury to one of their key glue guys in Lonzo Ball, and actually I would argue 2 players really, because if you remember, Alex Caruso also got clotheslined by Grayson Allen and missed 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it was towards the end of the season. He obviously came back that season, Lonzo did not, but the shift could somewhat be explained by losing 2 of your key players, your best defenders and your best playmaker. This team, there is no rational explanation for it. Like, yes, Isaac Okoro has missed some time recently, but he hasn't missed the past 12 games. The change in play, the drop-off happened well before Okoro started missing some time. Yes, Vucevic missed a game, Giddey was out for a couple of games during that stretch, as was Tre Jones, and of course Coby White has missed the most time more than anybody, but it really does not explain the sudden shift in how lifeless this team has looked, how soft they become, how timid they become, how checked out they've looked. These guys don't look like they want to be there, with the exception of a few players in Tre Jones, who always plays his ass off. Giddey is always playing hard, but outside of that, we have not seen consistent effort, the kind of effort we saw in that first week on the season from any of these other guys. Someone I had always praised about the energy he brings, the aggression he brings, even when he makes mistakes, he just plays through it. His confidence, his willingness to learn, trying to get better. That's why I had such high hopes for Modest, because he's not afraid. The past few games, Modest has looked like one of the more timid players out there. Now, he hasn't been playing that well in general, so obviously that doesn't help one's confidence overall, but not like this. Not when you're passing up on good looks, not when you're settling for threes instead of driving or cutting to the basket where he's at his best. Just taking 8 shots last night against the Hornets. Now, some of that is on the coaching staff, who need to be putting him in the right actions to get more shots and better quality shots outside of just being a spot-up shooter, and I'll get to the coaching staff in a little bit, but even still, something has changed within Modest Bucelis where he doesn't look as confident out there. He's not taking charge and being more aggressive. The same energy that we saw at the beginning of the season as well as last season is just not there anymore for him. And I really don't know what's happened. By the way, I know Modest's defense has slipped quite a bit more recently, but I'm actually not going to fault him on that shot against Siakam, the game-winning shot. That was actually solid defense by Modest and a great job on the double team by the Bulls, but that was just a very difficult and great shot by Pascal Siakam to knock down that game winner. But anyway, I'm a little concerned by what I'm seeing from Modest recently. I'm not going to lie, because the last thing you want to see is have him go down that Patrick Williams career arc and suddenly lose his confidence and drop off as a player. We're definitely not at those levels yet, but still concerning nonetheless. Modest was more active on the boards though, at least in this game, which we needed to see, especially after so many teams were killing the Bulls on the offensive glass, and it was in large part because Modest was getting outworked on box outs. Tonight, he had 11 boards, 3 blocks as well, but only 8 points on 9 shots. Patrick Williams, my God, man. I mean, I'm almost inclined to say, is this guy even an NBA player at this point? He's been that bad recently. And what's crazy is that he was having a hell of a start to the season. He was having people thinking, man, has Pat come alive? Has he remembered how to play basketball? Is this the Patrick Williams that's finally going to break out and at least be a solid role player? Nope. He's forgotten how to play basketball again. Can't handle the ball to save his life. Can't hit a short jumper. Still missing dunks. It's just unbelievable, man. Kevin Huerter, he's forgotten how to shoot the ball. Now, he did hit 2 threes that the Bulls really needed in the fourth quarter, but his shot was flat leading into that. Vucevic, don't even get me started with Vuce. I mean, letting Jay Huff go off on you like that for 14 points to start the game, even though he didn't score a single point thereafter, but then not being able to finish in the paint against Huff. And those really bad shots in the final minutes that cost the Bulls, the air ball 3 and then the wild shot in the paint. Like, listen, I don't like it when I hear from people on Twitter talking about how Vooch is the problem. He's the reason the Bulls have dropped off suddenly. No, because Vooch has actually been solid for this team and has come up big for them in a lot of games. But I will agree that he's starting to look a little more like the checked out Vucevic that we saw in the DeMar and Zach days. And that is not a good sign, especially if you're trying to trade this guy before the deadline. Again, really the only two players who have been playing like they actually care, and the only two guys that played well in this game were Tre Jones and Josh Giddey. Tre Jones made that nice play with the fake handoff and crossover drive to the basket to tie that game. That was a hell of a clutch basket, but of course it won't be remembered because of the Pacers game winner on the other end. But Tre Jones scoring 17 points on 7 for 9 shooting. What's crazy is that he doesn't take any threes. He gets most of his buckets fighting inside and scoring those teardrop floaters in the paint. And then Josh Giddey, 17 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, 7 for 13 shooting. Giddey is doing his job. Well, I should say he's doing his job on offense. Defense is another story, but I always appreciate the fact that he tries on that end of the floor, even though he misses a lot of off-ball defensive assignments. I will say, Lachlan Olbrich, NBA debut, he gave the Bulls some quality minutes in Jalen Smith's absence. Another hustle player, aggressive, made the right reads on offense, 11 minutes, and he was a plus 15 in his time on the floor. I would argue maybe Billy Donovan should have left him in there a little bit longer, but yeah, man, I mean, you look at these past 2 games in particular. Since I know I didn't do a post-game video last night, I was too pissed off to do one, and the problems they had in that game against the Pelicans, the Wizards, and Blazers, problems I talked about in a video before these 2 most recent games as things that needed to be addressed, namely allowing second chance points, offensive rebounds, and losing the possession battle and not getting as many shots as your opponent. That hasn't been the case these past 2 games. The Bulls have finally stopped allowing so many second chance opportunities, and last night they had the same number of shots as the Hornets. Tonight, the Pacers only got up 2 more shots than they did, and generally speaking, the Bulls have taken better care of the basketball. They haven't been turning it over as much. And then tonight, unlike last night, the Bulls finally didn't get lit up and have their opponent score 120 plus points on them, which I'm sure you all saw, the historically bad record of giving up 120 or more points in 11 straight games. That was the first time that's happened in league history in 35 years. Yeah, historically bad defense from the Bulls. But tonight, they held the Pacers to 103, although I would argue some of that was just luck from some poor shooting on the part of the Pacers, who are one of the worst shooting teams in the NBA, but still only 103 points. So what's the problem? How do you lose 3 straight games to the Pelicans, who were a 2-win team at the time, on a 9-game losing streak, the Hornets, a 4-win team at the time, on a 7-game losing streak, and now the Pacers, who going into tonight were a 3-win team? How is it, like I said at the top of the video, that these guys can just completely fall off in their play, completely lose their identity in a matter of weeks? Because I know some will say, well, what they did when they went 6-1, that wasn't real. They were getting lucky from some bad shooting by their opponent. It was fake. Nah, man, go back and watch those games, because their offense was on another level. They were flying up and down the court. They were in sync. They were sharing the ball. They were playing some of the best team basketball I've seen in a long time from the Bulls. What they were doing then was no fluke. Like, yeah, maybe they were getting lucky on defense with some bad shooting. Maybe their defense wasn't that real when they were like a top 5 defensive team in the league through the first few games of the season. But their offense, that was real. The fact that they were resilient and fought through adversity in games, that was real. This team is now a shell of what that team was. And I've got to be honest, I need an explanation from the coaching staff for why that is. It's on the coaching staff to figure out what happened, what went wrong, why is this team no longer buying into the system? How do you get your roster to respond better to you? Are the players understanding the game plan, the scouting report? Are you motivating these guys to come out ready to play each game no matter their opponent? That's on you, Billy Donovan, as a coach, to figure out what has happened and correct the problem, because it's not like they've had a drastic change in personnel. It's not Kobe White, like I'm sure some will say. No, they were losing without Kobe as well, and they started falling off before he came back. What is going on that your roster has collapsed like this in such a short period of time? That's on the coaching staff. Yes, the players need to be better. Yes, they need to play harder. But what are you doing about it to get this team back on track? I'm tired of all the excuses people give Billy Donovan because he's a Hall of Fame coach. I gave him praise for coaching this team well and maximizing his roster's talents at the beginning of the season. But right now, this is inexcusable. And now it's time to fix it or bring in someone else that the players will respond better to. Anyway, I don't really know what else there is to say. I'm already so over this team. Watch though, they're now going to beat the Orlando Magic, who are one of the hotter teams in the NBA right now. Of course, they would. Anyway, let me know what you guys thought of the game. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.